My name is Ingrid Newell. I'm 33 years old, and I almost didn't go to that dinner. Something in my gut told me to stay home with a bowl of soup and a bad movie instead of driving 40 minutes to my parents' house in the rain. But my mother had called 3 times that week, each message a little sharper than the last. Family shows up for family. My sister Vanessa's engagement dinner wasn't optional. We were finally meeting her fiancé, a man named Weston Cole, and I was expected to sit there and smile like everyone else. This is Second Seat Stories, and this is what happened. So I went. Wore the green dress that makes me feel like a person instead of a punchline. Brought a bottle of wine, because that's what you bring when you've never quite figured out where you belong at that table. The house smelled like garlic and roasted chicken. For 1 second, walking in, it actually felt like something good might happen. My father hugged me at the door, quick and a little stiff. Like affection is a chore he's still learning. My mother was in the kitchen barking instructions at nobody, and Vanessa was already glowing in the living room, her arm looped through this tall guy with an easy laugh. Weston Cole, polished, confident, the kind of man who asks questions because he was raised to think questions are charming. He shook my hand and said it was nice to finally meet the famous Ingrid. Famous for what exactly? I remember thinking. We sat down. 6 of us, crowded around the same table I've eaten 1,000 meals at. For a while it was fine. Wedding venues, Weston's job at some logistics firm downtown, my mother's potato gratin, mentioned no less than 4 times. Then Weston turned to me, polite, asked what I did for work. Simple question. The kind you ask a stranger to be kind. Before I could open my mouth, my mother cut in. Fast and sharp, the way she does when she's trying to get ahead of something embarrassing. "Don't embarrass us," she said, not even looking at me, already reaching for the wine. The table went quiet in that specific way. Rooms go. Quiet when everyone already knows the joke except the person it's about. My father chuckled into his napkin, and Vanessa, my sister, the bride-to-be, glowing under those dining room lights, leaned into Weston with a little laugh and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Maybe lie this time so you don't sound so pathetic." Everyone laughed. My mother the loudest. I just sat there with my fork in my hand, feeling that old familiar heat crawl up my neck. The one I've felt at every birthday, every holiday, since I was 19, and made the mistake of leaving a corporate job to build something of my own. In this family, ambition without a business card and a company logo isn't ambition. It's a disappointment they've been nursing for over a decade. What none of them knew, what none of them had bothered to ask in all these years, was that I hadn't been unemployed in a long time. Not since I quietly built a consulting firm from a laptop in my apartment. One that now works with 3 companies whose names would have made my mother's jaw drop if she'd ever cared enough to look them up. Not since I signed a contract 2 years ago with a logistics company downtown. Same industry Weston had just described. Same city. I looked at Weston. I looked at my sister's smug little smile, and I just smiled back. Calm. Easy. "No," I said quietly. "I think I'll tell the truth this time." I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and let the silence stretch just long enough to feel uncomfortable. "Actually," I said, setting the glass down, "I think you and I have already met, Weston. Just not like this." His face changed first, then Vanessa's, then everyone's, one by one around that table. The laughter died completely. "We've met before?" he said slowly. "I don't think so. I'd have remembered." "You would have," I said, "if you'd looked up from your phone during the Harrington account meeting 3 months ago. I was the consultant standing at the back of the room while your VP presented numbers that didn't add up. You spent most of that meeting checking scores under the table. I noticed. It's sort of my job to notice things." The color started draining from his face, slow, like a photograph developing in reverse. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My father set his glass down with a small, deliberate click, the sound he makes when the ground is shifting under him and he doesn't understand why yet. "Wait," Vanessa said, her laugh already dying in her throat. "What are you talking about?" I turned to her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the old urge to shrink myself smaller to keep the peace. 2 years ago, I started a consulting firm. Just me, a laptop, and a lot of late nights nobody in this house ever asked about. Today that firm works with 3 companies, one of which happens to be the logistics group Weston works for. I sit with executives. I've reviewed contracts with Weston's name on them. I've sat 2 seats away from his own CEO, discussing whether his division was hitting its targets. The room was so quiet, I could hear the rain tapping the window behind my mother's head. "You're lying," she said, but her voice had already lost its certainty. "I'm not," I said calmly. "Check my name. Ingrid Newell. It's on the paperwork. It's on the emails his company sends out every quarter. I'm not hard to find, Mom. You just never looked." Weston set his fork down very slowly. When he spoke, all the earlier polish was gone from his voice. "You're the new consultant, the one who flagged the Q2 discrepancies." It wasn't a question anymore. It was recognition, the cold kind. The kind that comes with realizing exactly how much he'd just casually complained about, at this table, to the one woman who'd already written a formal report on his company's culture. Vanessa looked between us, her face cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and something sharper underneath. The dawning realization that the sister she'd just humiliated in front of her fiancé held more leverage in that room than anyone had ever imagined. "Ingrid, I didn't know." "I mean, you didn't ask," I said. I kept my voice even. There was no need to raise it. The truth does its own work when you let it sit in a room long enough. Nobody asked. For 10 years, it's been easier for this family to assume the worst about me than to spend 30 seconds finding out the truth. It made the story simpler, didn't it? The sister who couldn't get it together, next to the sister who did everything right. My mother opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to argue. I'll never know which, because I stood up before she could decide. "I'm not angry," I said. And strangely, in that moment, I meant it. I'm just done. Done sitting at tables where I have to earn the right to be spoken to like a person. Congratulations on the engagement, Vanessa. I hope you and Weston figure out what honesty looks like before the wedding. Because tonight, I don't think either of you understand it yet. I picked up my purse, left the wine I'd brought untouched on the counter, and walked out into the rain without looking back. Nobody followed me. Nobody called. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, the silence behind me didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Driving home that night, wipers ticking steady against the glass, I realized something I probably should have understood years earlier. Some people will only ever see you the way they've already decided to see you. No amount of proof changes that. Not until the truth simply becomes impossible for them to ignore. I didn't need my mother's approval anymore. I didn't need Vanessa's laughter to stop stinging. I just needed to know, finally and completely, exactly who I was. And that was enough. If this story hit home, if you've ever been the one nobody believed in, until you didn't need them to, hit subscribe. This is Second Seat Stories, and there's a new one every week.